Okay, let's talk about these June 1st calls. June 1st, 2024 from Stephan Sterns. He called his parents like 7 times. We've got a lot to get through. Now, he only got through about 3 times, but he really wanted to speak with them that day for some reason. He got a win today. I'm looking at it as a win for Maddie, a win for everyone. When Sterns' lawyers' attempts to throw cameras out of the courtroom didn't work. So I'm going to like this judge. Judge Karstein, I'm going to like him. The main thing that blew my mind in one of these calls from June 1st, 2024, Stephan Sterns starts getting into it with his parents more about what he claimed happened when Maddie lost her life. After that, he starts talking about his relationship with Jenn Soto and how Jennifer used to joke that Maddie had the Electra complex. Once I heard that, it just blew my mind. And even researching it more, let me tell you what's more disturbing about it. We will get to that kind of towards the end. We have a lot to go through. So let's talk. Sometimes during these calls, Stephan Sterns says United States of America. He says it so quietly, United States of America. He's so, yeah, someone called him Eeyore. And I can kind of see that about him, but he says it so quietly, he's forced to say it louder. I wish he spoke up the entire time. I've done everything. I've run this audio through Final Cut Pro, enhancing it there, and through iMovie to take out that kind of warped sound. And I listened today with headphones, transcribed it all. So pay attention also to the fact that Stephan Sterns checks his balance often. So when he first calls, he can hear like his debit balance, but he can also hear like his commissary account balance.
For English, the time is 7:37 p.m.
United States of America.
Press 1 for English. The time is 7:43 p.m.
United States of America.
After the tone, please say again, United States of America.
United States of America.
You have 1 old message. To listen to your messages, please return to the main menu. Press 0 to make a prepaid collect call or speed dial call. Press 1 to make a debit call. Press 8 to hear your balance. Press 1 to hear your debit account balance. Press 2 to hear your other account balance is 17. Press 0 to make a prepaid collect call or speed for calls within the United States, Canada, and the Caribbean. Please enter the area code, prefix, and number to make an international. Your account balance is $29.05. The cost of this call will be 21 cents for the first minute and 21 cents for each additional minute, excluding taxes and other applicable fees. The time limit is 15 minutes. Press 0 to continue or hello, you have a call at no expense to you.
But the person you called has a voice mailbox that has not been set up yet. Goodbye.
County Corrections Department. This call was refused by the called party. Goodbye.
So you'll hear $17 or $20 or something like that. When he finally gets through on June 1st, you'll hear his dad, Chris, calling for his wife, Debbie, like, Debbie, Stephan's here.
Press 1 for English. The time is 7:45 p.m.
United States of America.
Press 1 for English. The time is 7:48 p.m.
United States of America.
Hello, you have a call at no expense to you from
Stephan Sterns. Debbie,
at Osceola County Corrections Department. This call will be recorded and subject to monitoring at any time. Thank you for using IC Solutions. You may begin speaking.
So Chris is explaining why some of these first calls were missed, and even one of them seemed like it was rejected, but technically it wasn't rejected. Chris explains he was on the phone with somebody else. He inadvertently hit the wrong button. So that's probably why that preceding call was refused. I can't help it. That reminds me of the Karen Reed trial. Whatever that guy's name is, he's like, oh, I inadvertently called my phone. That trial starts, I believe, Tuesday, April 1st. So I really want to get through these Sterns calls so I can be done by then and maybe start covering that case, because I've been watching it. It's really good, and it was on Max. Her documentary was really good. Oh, confusing.
Hey, is this a good time?
Hold on. Yeah, I was on the phone with somebody else, and first time you called in and inadvertently hit the wrong button. Hang on, I'll put you on speaker. Hang on. Okay, I got you.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Hey.
He's always in the well.
Yeah.
He's in a big room.
Yep, very echoey.
It's 7:48 p.m. on June 1st. Both Chris and Deb Sterns, they're on the speakerphone. Deb immediately says, you sound like you're in a well. And they're explaining it's a big room. It's very echoey wherever Sterns is.
Oh.
Did you get any of the books we sent yet?
No, not yet.
Oh, okay.
I don't have any notification of anything being sent back either. I had
Okay.
a
All right.
meeting with the mental health director a couple days ago. She said they're going to step me down, take me down a step in custody level. So I'm going to be taken off non-acute status, and as soon as the space opens up in one of the regular isolation cells, I'll be moved to one of those.
They're asking, did you get the books we sent yet? Nope, Stephan still didn't get the books. He's explaining he has some kind of meeting with the mental health director, and he's going to get a step down in custody level. He's almost kind of saying this maybe to make his parents proud. I don't know. I'm getting a step down. He says he's going to be taken off of some type of acute status. It's so difficult to hear this man and his mumbling. But of course, his speech is sounding garbled. He probably has some candy in his mouth. He's going to go to one of the regular isolation cells. So it's interesting. He thinks he's going to like this better, I can tell. But later, when I read through the emails again that he sent his parents, it's funny that he ended up missing being in these medical pods, as he explained to his parents in the emails, because he had a window somewhere in the medical pods where he could kind of see the sky. He could kind of see the trees swaying in the breeze, as he explained, and he didn't have that anymore.
Okay, good.
Does that mean that we can get a document to you and we can get it signed now?
Possibly. She said they won't put any restrictions on me.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. And
Yeah.
when's that supposed to happen?
What's that?
When is that supposed to happen?
Whenever a space opens up in one of those cells.
Oh, okay. All right.
She's on space. This is a very crowded jail. There's over 2,000 inmates.
So Chris is asking, okay, does that mean we can get a document to you now and get it signed? You know, they're trying to get that power of attorney to him so they can sell whatever car. They need money. Stephan says possibly. She said they won't put any restrictions on me. Well, I'm sure there'll be some. Chris is like, oh, that's good. When is it supposed to happen? Stephan says whenever space opens up in the cells, because this is a crowded jail. There's over 2,000 inmates.
All right. And you'll still be in kind of isolated protection?
Yep, I'll still be in protective custody. I'll still be by myself. I just won't be under self-harm watch.
Oh, okay. All right.
And I won't be in any of the self-harm pods.
Okay.
And you'll still be isolated, you know, in protection. Yep, I'll still be in protective custody. I'll still be by myself. I just won't be under self-harm watch. So I think that's pretty standard, especially a high-profile case. But, you know, Stephan coming in, going to jail, being under that watch, a lot of inmates get that. He said, I won't be under any of the self-harm pods.
So that's
all right. Well, I guess that's better accommodations. You'll have concierge services?
not likely, but, you know, I might actually have a raft to put my mat on, so I'm not going to be on the floor. Maybe I'll have, you know, a seat and a table. You know, who knows? I won't be surrounded by crazies all the time.
So Chris just goes right back to his joking nature, asking, I guess that's better accommodations. Will they have concierge services? Not likely, Stephan says, but I might actually have a rack to put my mat on, and I won't be on the floor. So we know he's complained about just being on the floor on this mat. He only had a toilet paper roll as a pillow, as he told the transport officer that time. Now he's saying, maybe I'll have a seat and a table. Who knows? I won't be surrounded by crazies all the time. Well, that's important that Stephan called the other people crazies, as if he's putting himself above all the other people in the medical pod, in light of the fact that his attorneys might use his TBI, traumatic brain injury defense. But obviously, and he'll talk later too about his whole mental state, and there were chimpanzees at the wheel. It wasn't me doing all this stuff, in the wake of Maddie's death. He's saying he wasn't in his rational mind, all this stuff, but now he's calling himself non-crazy. He's rising above all the other crazies. It's interesting that he's saying, well, I'm not crazy, when in fact his lawyers really might use that as some sort of defense to say, oh, his mental state isn't that of a normal person, neurotypical person, I should say. Kind of like they're doing in the Koberger case. They're trying to rely on some kind of autism diagnosis or all these other diagnoses to be part of his defense.
Okay.
Or relatively so.
All right.
That should be an improvement at least.
All right. Sounds good.
Yep. Any other news or updates on your end?
Stephan says that should be an improvement at least. So once again, Stephan is asking, any news for updates? It's like he's pumping his parents for information. To me, it's obvious. Stephan's attorneys are probably filling him in on some stuff that's going on, and he's just getting on the phone. I feel like he's hearing about stuff, and then he's getting on the phone to talk to his parents, like almost trying to find out, okay, did you guys hear this stuff yet? That's breaking news. He wants to know what's out there. He's trying to put feelers out. He's fishing from his parents to see what they know and if they'll still, be there for him, and putting money on his books. So initially, Chris just says no to everything status quo, just like he said before he really launches into the actual updates.
No. Everything's still status quo. Somebody sent us a link to a YouTube video that, these amateur sleuths, just are relentless. They just go down any and every, path they can go. And so this link to this YouTube video, had, tracked all your internet activity and all the sites that you had joined. Dark web. The dark web, whatever, but some of the offbeat websites. So I'm sure you know what I'm referring to without me having to name them.
Okay.
So Chris says, somebody sent us a link to a YouTube video. These amateur sleuths, they are reckless. They can go down any and every path they could go. So it sounds like Chris is not happy about all these interviews that came out, all the public record information coming out about their family. So this link to this YouTube video, it had tracked all your internet activity. I was thinking Stephan at this point is probably pooping bricks, hearing, wait, what? Somebody, sent my parents a link to a YouTube video about the dark web activities. How much do they really know? You can imagine just what YouTubers have found about him. All the sites you had joined, Chris said. Deb chimes in and says, dark web. So this is why I do believe they were watching Duty Ron's video due to the timing and the title. Because Duty Ron posted a YouTube video titled Jenn Soto and Stephan Sterns, Their Dark Online Searches Exposed. It was streamed live on May 30th, 2024. So isn't it coincidental? It got a lot of views and everything. Duty Ron is great. We love him. Isn't it funny? The very next day, Stephan is trying to call his parents 7 times. He just doesn't want to give up. So no wonder somebody sent, I'm sure it's probably that video, someone sent that to Deb and Chris. But they're like some of the offbeat websites, Chris says, so I'm sure you know what I'm referring to without me having to name them. Stephan says, Okay. He reminds me exactly of Jennifer Soto. Remember when the one detective was like, okay, we're with the sex crimes unit. You know, Jen was asking, what unit are you with? Who's taking over? You know, it's the sex crimes unit. And Jennifer just goes, okay, you know, without launching into more and asking more questions.
So I'm just telling you that all that should exist out there. Oh, by the way, you know, I sped through this 2-hour YouTube video, and your former roommates at the townhome that you rented have ratted you out in ways, and fabricated stories about a shared network drive and video that had been recorded, and supposedly approached your mother about them, threatening to disclose you in these videos, and that we paid them off, which was total bullshit. We've never heard about this until these videos, and these asshole friends of yours have managed to get themselves on these YouTube channels and disclose all sorts of shit. Because I can tell you this: if any one of them, and we know who we're talking about, had come to us with that, we would have told them, feel free to do whatever you want. We're not paying you jack shit. If somebody had done something, I suggest you pursue it with them or the authorities, but don't bring this up to our attention ever again. I can assure you that we would not have paid off anybody. It wouldn't have been our problem, and we wouldn't have paid for it, period.
So my former roommates are trying to blackmail you into paying them off?
So Chris says, I'm telling you all that ish exists out there. And then he says, oh, by the way, that's when he starts to transition into the interviews that Stephan's old friends gave to Gray Hughes Investigates. Chris says, I sped through this 2-hour YouTube video, and your former roommates at the townhouse that you rented have ratted you out in ways and fabricated stories about a shared network drive video that had been recorded and supposedly approached your mother about them threatening to expose or disclose you in these videos, and that we pay them off, which was total BS. So it's interesting the phrases they use. Chris uses this phrase, ratted you out, whereas Deborah is going to focus on calling those ex-roommates liars. To me, by Chris saying, your ex-roommates ratted you out, it's almost as if he's implying the roommates were telling the truth about some things. Now, if you don't know about those interviews, I've covered them extensively, where Gray Hughes spoke to, I know, Chase Leonard, and he may have spoken to Frank. He spoke to different friends that really knew Stephan Sterns. And so there were claims that this IT guy had a girlfriend, and on this shared computer, someone discovered a folder. One of the folders represented the IT guy's girlfriend of 5 years. Like Stephan had been surreptitiously, allegedly taking photos and videos or whatever of her. And there was another photo on there too. I think they kind of dubbed it, oh, young girls. But he didn't know if it meant like college girls or what age girls you're talking about here. But allegedly, supposedly, the IT guy was really mad when he discovered it, and Deb paid the guy off to kind of make it all go away, you know, so Stephan wouldn't get in trouble. So Chris is angry about these interviews with the former roommates, claiming that he and Deb, you know, paid someone off not to expose Stephan's antics. But Chris is like adamant. He says, we never heard about this until these videos, and these a-hole friends of yours managed to get themselves on YouTube and disclose all sorts of ish. So, you know, I don't know if it's true or not, if his friends made up these stories. Some of them sound really believable to me, or if they're telling the truth. Did Deb actually pay someone off? Did Deb never tell Chris? But what Chris is doing right now, he's making sure to get it on record that they knew nothing about this. All the roommates are liars, blah, 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 blah. Because Chris is angry. He's like, I can tell you, if any one of them, and we know who we're talking about, had come to us with that, we would have told them, feel free to disclose whatever you want. And if somebody had done something, feel free to bring it to the authorities, but don't bring it to our attention again, ever. I can assure you that we have not paid anybody off. It wouldn't have been our problem, and we wouldn't have paid for it, period, Chris said. So Stephan, at this point, he plays dumb. He's like, Wait, so my former roommates are trying to blackmail you into paying them off? And they're explaining, no, they're claiming they had come to us and blackmailed us and we supposedly paid them in the past.
No, they're claiming that they had supposedly come to us and blackmailed us and that we paid them money, which they've described it in two events, one at a restaurant and then your mother supposedly showing up at the townhome with a manila envelope. And you and I know, and we all know, that is bullshit.
Yeah.
Didn't happen, didn't exist, never did it.
It never happened.
And they described it in two events, Chris is saying. One in a restaurant and one where your mother showed up at the townhome with a manila envelope. And we all know it's BS. Didn't happen. You know, it didn't exist. Never did it. So I find it very interesting at this point. Chris is speaking up for Deborah. He is flat out claiming she never paid anyone off. But it's funny to me, when we all went through their divorce papers, just look down at the podcast link, you'll see all the history. We saw what Deborah said about Chris, how absent he was, how they lived apart, how Chris was hardly ever hanging around his family. That's what the friends told Gray Hughes. And I kind of tend to believe Stephan's friends. I believe they were telling the truth. Maybe, if Deb paid them anything. Maybe Chris doesn't know. Maybe he wasn't around. Maybe he was too busy with that poo lady, he had the 15-year affair with, allegedly, according to Deborah herself. 15th anniversary stuff she found belonging to Chris and this poo lady. I get it. It's forever ago. It's water under the bridge. We've all been forgiven for stuff. I'm not coming at them because of that. But Chris just wants to get it on record claiming Deb never paid off anybody. I think he's just protecting her. I don't know who knew what. But Stephan agrees it never happened. But I don't know, in my mind, it could very well have happened. A man with a predilection for young people, it probably didn't start when Stephan met Jennifer. What was Maddie, like 6 or so years old? And how old would Stephan have been? I'm trying to remember when they met. 2017, 2016, whatever. Let's see, I got to do quick math. 9, 8? Let's say they met when Stephan was like 30. All of a sudden, as a 30-year-old man, do you suddenly say, oh, I have an attraction to this young girl and I'm going to start being a creeper and I'm going to put a phone under the door and start spying on my girlfriend's roommate? No, that stuff usually just builds. It happens over time. And so the roommates and the people who knew Stephan claim he was doing that kind of creepy stuff back in the day. And I tend to believe them more. Whether Deb knew or not, or whether she paid anyone off or not, I don't know. But Chris is saying, and if they had done that, I would have told them to go ahead and do whatever you need to do. It's not my problem. Basically, Chris is saying they never would have gotten a penny out of him, but did they get some money out of Deb? I don't know. Was she trying to protect her little baby boy? The boy who sometimes when certain moms, of course not all moms, when moms are missing their husbands and they tend to have a son, sometimes they tend to put him in that role of husband in a weird kind of way. So I don't know if the relationship with Deb and Stephan is like, I'm just going to protect you, my baby boy.
And if they had done that, I would have said, go ahead and do whatever you want. You're not getting a penny from me. It's not my problem, so don't even come to me with it, period.
Are they aware that blackmail and coercion is also illegal?
Well, it's kind of a moot point when you're looking at the number of years ago this was. And right now, it's their word, it's hearsay, but I'm just telling you what these amateur sleuths are repeating. Matter of fact, they even said that we owned the townhome, which we didn't.
Stephan has the nerve to ask, are they aware that blackmail and coercion is also illegal? Well, Chris brings him back down to earth. Stephan, it's kind of a moot point because it happened so long ago, and it's their word against his. But he's just telling Stephan, these amateur sleuths, I'm just telling you what they're repeating. So is it a moot point because it happened so long ago? That's what's weird here. The blackmail and coercion allegedly never happened at all. So why is Chris saying it happened so long ago? It's almost like he's catching himself in a lie. Anyway, Chris is too busy trying to diss YouTubers and trying to take away the credibility of Stephan's friends, his roommates, and they went on record, some of them, with their full government name and made those claims to the YouTubers. The YouTubers didn't make the claims. So much so that Chase Leonard, I kept looking for his name in the court documents. I'm like, when are cops going to interview him? He knew Stephan for like 10 years. They were as close as brothers. And now they're getting into the minutia to try and discredit every YouTuber. Chris said, they even said we own the townhome, which we didn't, and now Deborah's chiming in saying, oh yeah, you've been living in $1 million homes and you were a spoiled, rotten kid.
We've been living in $1 million homes and you were a spoiled, rotten kid because of it, and I'm thinking, we've never been in $1 million home.
So I think she was kind of referencing some of my videos because I dug so deep into this case and I found different homes where they lived across the country, you know, California, Georgia, Florida, and all that. Some ritzy neighborhoods. And of course, I didn't publish the addresses. I'm not doxing anyone. But when I looked up the houses now, their current values on Zillow are more than $1 million. At least one of them was. And so that's why I said $1 million homes. And Stephan, we know he was a spoiled brat. I mean, he got the inheritance money. He bought the Omega. We went through all his traffic tickets he kept getting. His dad even talked about him crashing a car and just generally being an irresponsible brat, it sounds like. So Deb is like, I'm thinking we've never even been in $1 million home. Well, of course, the value is $1 million now, but back then, when they lived in these different homes, the value likely wasn't $1 million. But it's just semantics. They're like trying to take away from the substance of what the roommates were claiming, and that is Stephan's been a creeper for a long time. He's creeping on this woman, or those stuff he talked about with the stuff in the jars, and you can go on Grace Hughes' channel and watch it. I don't want to get all into it, but it's gross. And the point was, the roommates were claiming Stephan has this pattern of creepiness. He's been a creeper for a long time, but they're not getting into that. They're getting into semantics over whether or not they've been into, you know, $1 million home or not. They're trying to stray away from the facts. And the fact is, did Deborah know, especially Deborah, she spent more time with Stephan when Chris was off doing his own thing. It's like, did she see this pattern somehow, some inkling that her son had these predilections, and instead of, you know, trying to get him help or whatever you do, go talk to a psychologist, like prevent this, which could have prevented potentially Maddie's death and abuse, they choose to just talk about YouTubers.
But anyway, I'm just telling you the bullshit that goes on out there, which is why I don't pay attention to these YouTube videos. But I'm just telling you, your former roommates have, done a nice job of sabotaging or discrediting your character and what have you. So everybody's jumping on the bandwagon, you know, throwing you under the bus and what have you. But I'm just relating this story of that's been repeated a few times about some video being recorded in the townhome, and that they came to us requesting, and we pleaded with them not to disclose it, and we paid them off, which is just absolute bullshit.
You should be very careful about that because they're seriously opening themselves up to a lawsuit for defamation.
So Chris is saying, I'm just telling you the BS that goes on out there, which is why I don't pay attention to these YouTube videos. I think they do, because they're going to keep talking about different YouTube videos. Sure, Jan, it's not the YouTube videos. I think it's you don't like all the stuff that's coming out about your son and any reflection it might have on them, which I can understand. No one would want a son like Sterns. I mean, no one. So Chris says, I'm just telling you, your former roommates have done a nice job of sabotaging or discrediting your character. I'm like, really, Dad? I think Stephan did a nice job of discrediting his own character well enough himself without the roommates needing to say anything. Chris says, basically everyone's jumping on the bandwagon to diss Stephan in so many words. But he just wanted to reiterate that story that's being repeated, that some kind of video was created in a townhome, and Chris and Deb allegedly came to them begging them not to expose Stephan, and Chris calls it all BS. But I tend to believe the roommates because it sounds, I don't know, it just sounds believable. When you listen to that interview with Chase, I mean, he does admit, he's like, oh, I wasn't the best person and I had my issues or whatever growing up, but his sounds believable. Why else would you just call up a show and just make up some lie about Stephan? I don't believe it. So Stephan's like, well, they should be very careful about that because they're seriously opening themselves up to a lawsuit for defamation. So I'm like, Stephan's brain is always working towards money. It's like he's trying to hypnotize his parents into suing his former roommates just so he can get some money. Money on his books. But Chris once again brings his little 37-year-old man-child down to earth. He says, look, it takes money to sue somebody, and you have to prove it. Nobody's going to take a case like that pro bono, you know, for free, and you have to prove damages. And he says we haven't suffered any damages.
Well, you know, it takes money to sue somebody, and you have to prove it. And so no one's going to take a case like that pro bono, and it's not worth chasing. And you have to prove damages, and we haven't suffered any damages. But I'm just telling you the bullshit that's floating out there.
That's crazy.
Basically, Chris just wants to get it on record, get it on wax, as they used to say, get it on audio. We didn't do these things. We had nothing to do with, we didn't know. It's more like courting the court of public opinion and actual courts. We didn't know any of this stuff about Stephan. We didn't pay anybody off. That's it. I think Chris is basically wanting this audio out there to say, look, don't blame us for this stuff. It's like counteracting. No wonder they decided later, even though they're dogging out YouTubers, they did decide months later, let's go on Hidden True Crime. You know, we need a platform to amplify our voices. I wonder how they feel about these jail calls now, though. I wonder if these parents feel stupid or hurt or like fools, and they were thinking, yeah, it's a snow job. Stephan was just pulling the wool over our eyes back then, and you know. But basically, Chris is telling him, look, nobody's going to take this case. We're not suing anybody. Basically, Chris is telling Stephan, it's enough for us to keep $50 on your books, since you keep asking for $50 here and there for commissary, let alone trying to launch some lawsuit against your old friends who are probably telling the truth anyway, I bet you. Stephan's like, it's crazy. That's really low. And Chris reiterates, I'm just giving you a heads up. They've dug into the website you've participated in and subscribed to, and they're leaving no stone unturned.
Yep. But anyway, you know, they've done their search, and they've discovered some of these websites that you've subscribed to, participated in, or what have you. So I'm just giving you a heads up that they are leaving no stone unturned as they go down a rat hole chasing this shit.
Crazy.
Yep. Yep.
Well,
They go down a rat hole chasing this ish. It sounds like he's saying rat hole, not rabbit hole. It's so hard to hear some terms, some words. So Stephan just says, yep, he doesn't have much to say about it after that. You know, it would be like, if you, to me, are an innocent person, it would be like, what websites? What dark web? I've never been on the dark web. I don't know what you're talking about, you know, but no, Stephan is just, yep, all these awkward silences.
Don't even try to figure out why they did it, because we can't figure out why they did it, except
Who did it?
the roommate.
Okay. All right, we moved on past that.
Yeah, but the thing is that.
So Deb chimes in, don't even try and figure out how they did it, because we can't figure out how they did it. And Chris is like, who did what? And Deb is like, the roommates. And Chris is like, okay, we've moved past that. He always wants to like control the conversation. That's what we've moved past.
These YouTube sites give people a chance to talk with complete immunity, because they never check them, they never fact check them, they don't care about the facts, they just care about getting people to click on and pay them money for the YouTube site. So,
and supposedly these hosts of these YouTube channels pay these people to provide this information as well. So whatever that's worth.
So Deb says, the thing is, these YouTube places give people a chance to talk with complete immunity, because they never check them. They don't care about facts. They just care about people to click and give them money. And I'm like, no, Deb, that's not true. You can see from plenty of references from us actually contacting the court, describing the actual facts per the court cases. You know, YouTubers, we just can't get on here and say random things, or at least I don't. You know, and I'm very clear, like, oh, I'm speculating this, or this is a fact. This is what this court document actually says, or, you know, whatever. But of course, it's easier for these parents to have their hate and vitriol spewed towards YouTubers instead of their nearly 40-year-old son who abused a little girl and is accused and is being charged with her death. So they go into, supposedly the host of these YouTube channels pay these people to provide this information, whatever that's worth. I have no idea about that. I never interview anybody on my channel. It's one of the reasons why. I don't pay people. I don't know if people being interviewed are paid, or if they just want to talk. Sometimes they're shocked. They knew this person and they just want to talk. Sometimes that's the only benefit they're getting. They're not getting paid. You know, you can't assume they're paid. Just like Deb and Chris go on Hidden True Crime, they probably didn't get paid. They just wanted their voices out there. They wanted to tell their side of the story.
And some roommate.
Oh yeah, the roommate That's really funny. So, reading this interview of the former roommate said that both you and were grossly overweight, and you both had what?
Gastric bypass.
Gastric bypass. I mean, I'm just telling you, this shit is just what? I don't. They didn't disclose her name, okay? But to say that you had gastric bypass, which you've never had, and that you were grossly overweight, which you never were, again, is the bullshit that's just floating out there on these YouTube channels.
Well, I mean, I had gastric bypass, but
Yep.
it's not a big deal these days.
I understand, but they're saying that you had it.
They're saying that she refused to take her bipolar meds, which she was very forgetful, and didn't do a lot. But they were saying that it was not ADHD, but they thought she was autistic. And going, no, she wasn't.
It was a question mark. You had one doctor saying that she was possibly on the spectrum, another saying, no, it doesn't seem like it, she's just ADHD. And other doctors didn't know. So it was a question mark.
Okay, so now Deb chimes in about a different roommate, a supposed former roommate of Jennifer's. So I can tell they're all over these YouTube videos. They're obviously watching me, I feel like. Probably strategic. You sure they're watching Gray Hughes Investigates? I think they're watching Guilty of Crime and Duty Ron, just to name a few. And they're pretending like they're not watching it, but the stuff they're referencing, they obviously are watching or were watching at this point, because they're talking about the allegations that another woman allegedly who lived with Jennifer, I don't know, supposedly, was saying, oh, Stephan and Jenn were grossly overweight and they both had gastric bypass surgery. And Stephan's like, which former roommate? And Chris is like, well, the woman didn't give a name. So Chris says, it's a lie. He says Stephan never had gastric bypass surgery and he was never grossly overweight. But Stephan is quietly correcting his dad, and he says Jennifer did have gastric bypass, even though her name is redacted. We know who he's speaking about. We can tell from contextual clues. And it's not a big deal these days, Stephan says. So I wonder, did Stephan ever have it or not? I mean, I have seen pictures of him where he was a little bit bigger. I don't know how much overweight. But Deb says they're saying Maddie refused to take her bipolar meds, but they say she's very forgetful. Stephan doesn't chime in much here, but Deb continues speaking, saying they're saying Maddie wasn't like ADHD, but she's autistic. And Deb's like, I'm going, no, she wasn't. Now Stephan chimes in again to start talking about his favorite topic, Maddie. He says it was a question mark. One doctor was possibly saying Maddie might have been on the spectrum. The other doctor was potentially saying she had ADHD. Stephan said the other doctor said other stuff. So he repeats it was a question mark.
Yeah. So anyway, it's a three-ring circus out there with these YouTube channels, which is why I don't watch them. Your mother doesn't watch them, but every now and then somebody sends us a link to something, and like I said, I sped viewed it, and came away with a little bit of information and a lot of bad information, misinformation, inaccurate information, but it is what it is, and so I'm not going to bother with it. You have to consider the source and the validity of it, and everybody's highly speculative about whatever they come across, and then they try to make something monumental out of it that just doesn't exist.
I don't know how they can even find jurors that haven't listened to some of this crap.
Yeah,
They can't.
It's tainted. It's tainted. The whole thing is tainted now.
Yeah, they might have to shop it out to a different venue, but even at that point, I think it's going to be hard to find anyone who hasn't heard about all this.
So Chris says, anyway, it was a three-ring circus out here with these YouTube channels, which is why I don't watch them. Well, it sounds like they were doing a lot of watching, at least back then. So Chris is going back to the notion he's not going to watch these YouTube videos, and he came away with some information, some misinformation, and you have to consider the source, and he sped through them, and I can understand that because I watch a lot of YouTube videos double time so I can get so many in. But, he's claiming, oh, I only watched that because his mother was sent a link. Everything is highly speculative, Chris says, and people on YouTube are just trying to make something monumental out of it. Deb is saying, I don't even know how they find jurors who haven't listened to this crap. And Stephan quickly chimes in to say they can't. So they're already out there throwing this notion that these YouTube videos are going to taint the jury. We know that's a crazy notion. Of all the people in Kissimmee, we know a lot of people have not heard of Stephan Sterns, let alone watch these YouTube videos. That's why I love that the judge struck down this motion to keep cameras out of the courtroom, because Stephan's, he has great attorneys. They were arguing, as they should, they got to try everything. They were arguing, oh, it'll be, so tainted, everything. There's nothing out there that says wrongly accused Stephan Sterns. It's all so horrible against him. But the judge was like, look, basically in so many words, it's not that bad. We're not banning the cameras from the pre-trial stuff just because little Steffi doesn't want to be on camera. Well, Maddie probably didn't want to be on camera doing the things you forced her to do. But Deb is saying it's tainted. The whole thing is tainted now. So Stephan says, yeah, they might have to shop it out to a different venue, but even then I think it's going to be hard to find anyone who hasn't heard of all this. So he is really overestimating his popularity, and the notion, like the state's attorney said in court when arguing, there's always crime cases that people haven't heard of. Through the voir dire process, he can always find jurors who haven't heard of certain cases. So it's wishful thinking from Stephan and Deb, like, oh, everybody in the world down there has watched these YouTube videos. You can't get a fair trial now.
Yeah.
Well, that's true. And the minute they do hear about it, they're going to go in, and even though they're not supposed to, they're going to go in and check the internet, and they're going to see these things. They're going to believe this stuff because they don't know the difference between truth and non-truth.
Fact and fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's nothing, if I go in and say, you people are idiots. You know this never happened, and I can't do that because it won't do good.
You don't want to engage with it.
So.
Then Deborah claims the jurors who haven't heard about it, they're going to break the rules and go on the internet and listen to all this stuff, and they'll believe it because they don't know the difference between truth and non-truth. Fact and fiction, Chris says. And Deb says she can't go in and say these people are idiots. Stephan's like, you don't want to engage with it. Of course he doesn't want his parents engaging with these YouTube videos because he doesn't want his parents actually learning the truth about, him being on the FetLife, or, him being all the stuff he did to Maddie, all the stuff we're breaking down in the court documents. He doesn't want his parents to know all that. He just wants to be able to give his side of the story like he's been able to do. He's been able to snow job his parents for so long because I'm sure there's a lot they didn't know, the other side of it, the truth.
No, don't want to give them. They're not worthy of the merit of any comments, and they can just enjoy themselves. And then when the truth comes out, then they'll have to do a lot of backtracking. Yeah, right. Okay, sure. But anyway.
Chris is like, they're not worthy of the comment. And when the truth comes out, they're going to have to do a whole lot of backtracking. Well, obviously, they changed their mind about YouTubers. They went on Hidden True Crime. And who's actually doing the backtracking? Well, Stephan will probably have to do a lot of backtracking when he takes this to trial and not so pretty truths come out about their precious son, as Stephan called it. Somehow, some pretty truths, not so pretty truths, or whatever. Chris and Deb, in a way, have already done a mea culpa. We could tell, like, in July from that interview with Chris going to the police station thinking Jenn is so involved, convincing himself that Jenn even showed him a picture of CSAM and all this crazy stuff. They were still believing, maybe it was Jenn and Stephan in this criminal organization. They just would not let their minds initially think it was just Stephan who enacted the worst parts here. But by September, they kind of pulled a mea culpa. I'd have to go back to Hidden True Crime to see their exact words, but it was something like, we now believe Stephan was the sole one responsible. But at this point on June 1st, they were still hoping, he could throw Jenn under the bus.
I will tell you this, Stephan. You know that we're saved people. You know that we're Christians, and you know that these people came to us many times for help in their living situations, and you know that we helped all of them. I don't understand why these kids think it's so wonderful to jump on this bandwagon and crucify us when we were there for them when they needed us. I don't understand that.
Because we have fallings out for various reasons, and they can't resist the temptation to kick me while I'm down because they think they can do it with impunity.
Deb says, Stephan, you know that we're saved people, that we're Christians, and that these people, came to them, these roommates, many times about their living situations. And she's inferring, obviously, these roommates had a hard life or problems in their home, basically being good believers. Deb and Chris just kind of rescued them and allowed them to live with them. And Deb is like, she can't believe they're turning their backs on him now and talking about him. Deb says, we helped all of them. I don't know why these kids think it's so wonderful to jump on the bandwagon and crucify us when we were there for them when they needed us. I mean, okay, I see part of what she's saying. If that's true, if, they really rescued these kids. And Chase was very honest. I don't know if he talked about his home life too much or his bad dealings, but he talked about Chris hiring him to do a job, and he did talk about them helping, and how the parents let him drive all these different cars. He wasn't even their son. So, they do say some stuff, but that doesn't negate the other stuff. It doesn't make the other stuff not true. So Stephan says they're sowing doubt for various reasons, and they can't resist the temptation to kick me when I'm down because they think they can do it with impunity. So that doesn't quite make sense to me. If you had a former roommate, all of a sudden he's charged with these horrible crimes against a child, would you really go on a YouTube show and just start making up all these lies about him out of thin air? For what reason? To what end? And then Stephan is like, they didn't have the balls to do it when I was free. Some of the stuff doesn't make sense. And maybe it's true if the roommate did find stuff. Did the roommate accept a payout? And instead of going to the police, I don't know.
Absolutely.
They didn't have the balls to do it while it was free.
What's that?
So they didn't have the balls to do it while it was free.
Yeah.
Well, they were jealous. You know who was always the one with the little, very, very something on his back, the mouth.
Oh,
He
yeah.
was always so jealous of you. He's so jealous of you. And
he sabotaged me at every turn. I mean, if you remember when I was working Quiznos, I was in line for management, so he started working there. Then suddenly everyone's attitude towards me changed, and he became the manager.
Yeah.
Well, that's what he does.
And, there were people in our friends group who, for some reason, were under the impression that I was a complete moron.
Mm.
Well, they should check your IQ score.
Well, I know he was backstabbing and trying to put himself above me at every opportunity.
Yeah.
Found out a while back that he was even stealing my possessions and selling them.
Like what?
Airsoft guns. I mean, my street board went missing. A lot of my football cards went missing. There's the one missing.
Are you talking about when you got the roommates, he was stealing your stuff and selling it?
Yep.
They're jealous, Deborah explains, without naming one friend. She says, the one with the very, very something on his back, like the mouse. I'm assuming she's referencing the IT guy friend she's going to talk about with maybe a mouse tattoo on his back. I don't know. He was always so jealous of you. Stephan agrees. Oh, yeah. He sabotaged me every time, like when I was working at Quiznos and I was in line for management, and then he started working there and everyone's attitude towards me changed and he became a manager. So Stephan's claiming, he would have been this big-time Quiznos manager if not for this jealous friend who just sabotaged his career and turned all the Quiznos people against him. Yeah, that's what he was. He was sneaky. That's what Deb ironically says about Stephan's friend, not about Stephan. Stephan says some people in our friend group were under the impression I was a complete moron. So basically he's blaming this friend for his life's failures. But Deb chimes in about her smart little boy. Well, they should check your IQ score. Deb's always bragging about her intelligent little well-read boy. But Stephan says, I know he was backstabbing and trying to put himself above me at every opportunity because he couldn't do it on his own, Deb says. So Stephan says, a while back I discovered he was stealing my possessions and selling them. And they're like, what? Like his airsoft gun, one of some kind of cards, probably a trading card, went missing. One of his skateboards went missing. So Chris is like, to reiterate, you're talking about the roommate who was stealing your stuff. And Stephan concurs and says, yep, he needed it to support his lifestyle.
No surprise.
Nope.
I believe that.
He needed to support his lifestyle somehow and did the same thing with his parents' crap too, so. What else?
I know he peddled his dad's pills.
Yeah, he was a first class citizen. We all know that, which is why he got kicked out of his house.
Yep. And anyway, I'm going to call you back in 15 minutes if I can, because we got the 1 minute thing.
All right, later.
All right, bye.
Somehow he did the same stuff with his parents' stuff too. They all agree, and Deb says something about, I know he did something with his dad's pills, and Chris is like, yep, he was a first-class citizen, being sarcastic again, of course. That's why he got kicked out of his house, Chris says. I find it humorous. They're focusing on these bad characteristics of one of Stephan's ex-roommates, and I don't know what's true or not. Maybe he wasn't the best guy in the world, and I think some of them admitted to that fact in their interviews. However, Stephan is the one sitting in jail talking to his parents right now with heinous charges against a child. So he doesn't really have a leg to stand on when dogging out these ex-roommates. So at this point, Stephan says, I'll call you back in 15 minutes because we got the 1 minute warning, even though I didn't even quite hear it. Maybe I'll hear it. I'll have to listen again. I thought at first he was just uncomfortable with the topic, but he does indeed call his parents back. He had called them quite a bit on June 1st. So I don't know if he's trying again, like to butter them up so he can finally hit them with a money request. So finally, 8:19 p.m. on June 1st, 2024, he's able to call right back. It's 8:19. He gets right through. He says, hey, I'm back. And Deborah cheerily says, yay.
The time is 8:19 p.m.
United States of America.
You have one old message. To listen to your messages, please return to the main menu. Press 0 to make a for calls within the United States, Canada, and the Caribbean. Please. Your account balance is $25.90. The cost of this call will be 21 cents for the first minute and 21 cents for each additional minute, excluding taxes and other applicable fees. The time limit is 15 minutes. Hello, you have a call at no expense to you from
Stephan Sterns.
an inmate at Osceola County Corrections. This call will be recorded and subject to monitoring at any time. Thank you for using IC Solutions. You may begin speaking.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, I'm back.
Yay.
So apparently their previous call I was looking at ended at 8:03, and there must be some kind of 15-minute waiting period. So he called back 8:19 when he could. So Stephan's like, he spent the last 15 minutes thinking about these yahoos, you know, his old friends.
So, spent the last 15 minutes thinking about these yahoos.
They aren't worth the time.
Can't believe that. It's
Well, that's true.
for all of them that they would try to do this crap.
You know, these are the same ones that came to you for help and were always saying what a good friend you were, and you would keep all their secrets for them and stuff. But yet they don't have any secrets of yours. They'll make them up just so that they can make themselves sound big on YouTube. You know.
Yep.
So he's still talking bad about his ex-roommates. Obviously, this is a safe topic. He can sit there and just dog out these other people instead of eventually getting to more of what happened that night and talking about Maddie's Electra complex, according to Jennifer, and all this stuff. I can't believe they would try and dog out these ex-roommates. And Stephan is sadly painting himself as the ultimate victim. It probably is hurtful, but Deb says, these are the same ones who came to you for help and always said what a good friend you were, and you would keep all their secrets for them. And this is where Deb almost messes up. She almost says they wouldn't keep your secrets, but she stumbles and she says, yeah, they don't have any secrets of yours, but they'll make them up. So just to make themselves sound big on YouTube. Yep, Sterns is agreeing. Whatever.
It's a sad situation when people are that desperate for attention.
Yep.
Especially when Sir Lancelot was the one going to community college to learn how to be a computer programmer, and he's the only one who could have set up a network if there ever was one. So forget that. That's bullshit. You know, he did it. It could be why he did it.
Paid for information and decided he would make some stuff up and get paid on my account.
Deb says it's a sad situation when people are that desperate for attention, especially when Sir Lancelot was going to a community college. This is the IT guy. I wonder if he anywhere will kind of, I don't know, show up in court if I can find his name. But Sir Lancelot was going to a community college and specializing in computers. He was the only one who could have set up a network if there ever was one. So she's thinking it wasn't a network. It was just like some folder, like a shared folder, you know, on a, well, maybe if it was a local area network, but it was just, I think, one computer. But Deb seems to be digging herself in a hole here. In the interviews, Stephan's friend did say indeed it was an IT guy that Stephan roomed with who discovered that Stephan was the one who had allegedly been taking photos and videos of the IT guy's girlfriend of 5 years. So in my mind, it's lining up more with what Stephan's roommates were claiming. It just lines up more. And even though Stephan always tries to pretend like he's so technically illiterate, we all know that 1,700 photos and videos of Maddie later and 35,000 CSAM photos of other children later, he is not ignorant of computer stuff. Deb says if anybody did it, you know, we know he did it. So now she's trying to make concessions here in case somehow this folder from years ago pops up in question is ever found. She's already blaming this Lancelot guy a lot. Stephan says, oh, something like Lance would make up stuff and get paid on Stephan's account. He's like, whoever paid him ought to get a refund because he fleeced them.
Yep. Whoever paid him ought to get a refund because he fleeced them.
They don't care. Do you know how much money they made off of it? To have all this purulent information on you, to have people click on. These people are vultures. They're worse than that.
Oh yeah.
Because they don't wait till you're dead to feed on you.
Yeah. Well.
So first of all, now Stephan's family's going down that speculative rabbit hole, you know, deeper than any YouTuber, just, you know, claiming a YouTuber paid somebody, Stephan's friends. They don't care. Do you know how much money they made off of it, Deb asks. They have all this purulent information on you. Deb always uses the most fascinating words. She sent me to Google. Purulent, containing, consisting of, or being pus. Like pus, that's just so gross. In that context, ew. She's saying the roommates have this purulent information on Sterns. To have people click on it, and then these YouTubers, they're vultures, they're worse than that. It is so strange to me that Deb reserves her vitriol, her hate, for YouTubers who are covering her son's case instead of directing that vitriol and that hate and that rage against Sterns, who's accused of harming a child, Maddie, in the worst way. And so I was like, why is that? I mean, I understand her continuing to have love for her son, but she is valuing his life so much more than she did Maddie's life. It becomes apparent the more we go through this. But I feel like Deborah, she has this, maybe it is kind of a racist type of bend like her, like Stephan's roommates accused her of, or whatever it is. She's going to be like, oh, it was Maddie's time. Oh, don't get me started on that. It was her time and it was this, and almost like she was that little girl, you know, whatever, almost like her life didn't have value compared to this precious baby boy's life who was in jail. Oh yes, Sterns says and agrees, and Deb says the most horrific thing is they don't wait until you're dead to feed on you. Whew. Well, Stephan says and gives a big exhale. I guess he's tired of this topic, or it just became really awkward because of Deborah saying, oh, these YouTubers don't wait until you're dead to start feeding off you. It's just awkward seeing as though we're talking about this case of the death of a child and she's focusing on, oh, what are they doing to my baby boy? His ex-roommates are talking badly about him. So then Chris finally chimes in, the awkward silence. Well, you know, I'm hanging in there. How are you doing? You know, Chris is asking, how are you doing? Stephan's like, I'm hanging in there. Eeyore says, someone called him, I'm keeping up as best I can. Did a little bit of exercises today, crunches, squats, leg lifts, whatever.
Hey, how you doing?
You know, I'm hanging in there. Keeping up as best as I can. Did a little bit of exercise today.
Good.
Push-ups, crunches, squats, leg lifts, whatever.
Whatever you can do.
Well, see if you can ask somebody about the book order and see, I don't know how long it takes to have these items delivered, but I don't know. We haven't gotten any indications that they've been returned, so they're in the system, so I don't know how long it takes for you to get them.
Yeah, I haven't gotten any indication that they've been returned either, so still waiting to hear on that. But,
Whatever you can do, Deb says. And Chris says, well, we'll see if you can find out about the book orders. I don't know how long it takes for these items to get delivered. Chris says they don't have any indications they've been returned. They're in the system. I don't know how long it takes you to get them. Stern agrees he hasn't gotten any indications they've been returned either. He's waiting to get them. And then he's the one who brings up the fact that he's been praying a lot. Deb says, good, he hears you. God hears you.
been praying a lot.
Good.
And,
He hears you. God hears your prayers.
We've been praying for deliverance as well, but I don't know.
Well, Proverbs shows you how to live. Romans shows you how God forgives. So those are the two I would look at.
I've been praying to Him to deliver me from all this and give me a chance to get my life back on track. But there might be some kind of slim chance, but I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to jinx anything or get anybody's hopes up. But I'm going to try. Worth a try anyway.
I was trying to find what Stephan, when he was Sustene on Reddit, what he had written something about religion. And now he's just Mr. Godly. He was all against religion. Well, Jesus was against the religious leaders of the day, but I'm talking about, the real here. Stephan wasn't into Jesus and Christ and God and all that and Christian, but now he is using it to run game. Stephan says, I'm praying for deliverance as well, but I don't know. He trails off. He sounds doubtful, and this is one of the many times he starts talking about deliverance. He keeps talking about deliverance. He's latched onto the idea of being delivered out of this situation, the situation he's in, but I think he's just talking about physical deliverance. He's uncomfortable. He doesn't have the snacks he wants. He's not home with mommy. He can't sleep all day. Well, he can sleep more, but he doesn't have the accoutrements and the things he had when he was out here. He just wants to be freed from jail. I don't know if he's really talking about his soul and the condition of his soul and like true deliverance. Proverbs tells you how to live. Romans tells you how God forgives, Deb says. So indeed, Proverbs is part of the Old Testament and Romans is in the New Testament. And indeed, the whole Bible is rich with wisdom. The New Testament and Romans tells you how God forgives, but it's not as simple as just saying, oh, I'm sorry, and paying lip service to God and, continuing to lie. God can see through all the lies, so it's no point in lying. That's what Stephan needs to know. So those are the two she's recommending, Book of Proverbs, Romans. And later she's going to tell him, just throw out that Old Testament. He's talking about Exodus because he's talking about like the slaves being set free and wandering around the desert. Well, he didn't talk about that part, but I know that's probably what he's reading. But he just wants to be delivered from, this slavery. I've been praying for him to deliver me from all this, Sterns says. Yeah, he's probably hoping to pull a Casey Anthony and fool a jury and get them to set him free. Casey Anthony showed up in court. She wouldn't even wear this. It was just like a school marm outfit. And, like when she's out and free and her daughter's missing, whatever, she's like, oh, sexy body contest and all that dancing. Now, up in court, she's just like, oh, I'm an innocent little girl, Anyway, Sterns has been praying for a chance to get his life back on track. And he's like, there might be a slim chance, but he doesn't want to jinx anything or get anybody's hopes up. So what kind of defense strategy is he alluding to? Kind of throwing Jennifer under the bus? Claiming Maddie took her own life? I don't know what he's talking about. I'm going to try, worth a try anyway, he says so quietly and meekly. So Deb picks up on what he's putting down and she starts talking immediately about Jennifer.
They need to get her out of the hospital where she can be interviewed by the police. They need to bring all her family in, all those bitches that was sitting there at the grandmother's house calling 911 and being ugly to 911 operators. They already knew what had happened. They all knew. And none of them were acting scared. None of them were acting concerned. They were talking like we're talking now. Like there wasn't really anything big going on.
Well, I wouldn't get so carried away with any conspiracy theories. You
don't have to be a conspiracy theory to see the writing on the wall.
Well, at any rate, it's probably not going to help me anyways.
Well, Jennifer needs to get out of the hospital so they can interview her and all her family, all those bitches who's sitting up there at the grandmother's house and calling 911 and being ugly to the 911 operators. No one was being ugly to the 911 operators. So there were 2 calls sounding like they were from maybe Stephanie, maybe Jennifer's sister, and then there was the 1 call from Jennifer's mom, Yolanda. And of course, she was angry because no one had showed up yet. You know, it had been like 3 hours. No one responded to their initial report of Maddie missing. And Yolanda showed more emotion than Jennifer did. Yolanda was saying, what, this is not important to you? It's a missing child. So Yolanda was showing concern for Maddie. But Deb is like, no, they all knew what happened and none of them were acting scared. None of them were acting concerned. Now talk about somebody throwing a whole bunch of speculation around and defamation of people. Here's Deb throwing big accusations towards Maddie's family. She's ignoring the fact that Stephan knew exactly what happened, but he was the one standing there pretending. We know for sure that Maddie was just a missing child. But Deb is like, they were talking like, we're talking now. There wasn't anything big going on. And then Stephan's like, well, don't get carried away with any conspiracy theories. So sometimes he kind of throws a little shade toward Jennifer and all these group of 13 calls, but then other times it's like he's trying to rein his parents in. It's like a push and pull, lie, pulling them, jerking them all around. Deb says, you don't have to be a conspiracy theory, I think she meant theorist, to see the writing on the wall. Well, yes, Deb, the writing on the wall, as you know, is a phrase from the Bible. You know, it refers to that chilling event in Daniel 5 where a literal hand appeared on the wall writing cryptic words during King Belshazzar's feast, foretelling the imminent downfall of the Babylonian kingdom. So I found that interesting. She said, the writing's on the wall. Yeah, the writing's probably on the wall for Stephan and anything in the kingdom that he was doing of sin, of wrongdoing, of misuse. At any rate, Stephan says, it's probably not going to help me anyway, he says above a whisper. What won't help him? Blaming someone else or what?
Well, don't give up anything. Don't give up on anything.
Well, I'm not. I'm holding on to hope until there's nothing left to hold on to.
Well, when you get to the end of the rope, you tie a knot in it and still hang on.
You know, when I first got here, I was praying to God for strength and serenity, and, you know, He's given me that. Especially lately, I've noticed I've just been overcome by an overwhelming sense of calm and serenity.
Well, good.
He's working on you. I pray for every day. I pray for Him to put fences of protection around you. And hear you calling Him.
Well, I have been, and thank Him for granting me that serenity. You know, I've just been thinking about, you know, how He works, you know, how He uses hardship as a vehicle to move you.
Yeah.
Deb says, well, don't give up on anything. Stephan says, I'm not. I'm holding on to hope until there's nothing left to hold on to. This just drives me nuts. I know they're on the phone. I know they use the excuse, I can't talk about my case, but then all this elusive, alluding to, but not quite saying what you mean, it drives me nuts. When you get to the end of your rope, you tie a knot and you hang on, Deb says. It reminds me of that 1980s meme before we even knew what memes were, and like the kitty cat is hanging on. Stephan says he's praying to God for strength and serenity. He's given me that, especially lately. Sterns says he's just been overcome by an overwhelming sense of calm and serenity. Good, Chris says, and Deb chimes in, taking the credit for it and saying, like, he's working on you. I pray every day for him to put fences of protection around you and hear you calling him. And Sterns says, I have been, and I thanked him for that serenity and thinking about how he works, you know, how he uses hardship as a vehicle to move you. Sterns is going to talk about God using hardship as a vehicle to move you several times. It's interesting. More on this audacity later.
You know, human
I was,
nature being what it is.
I was in the kitchen making sandwiches, and I started laughing in the kitchen because we were talking about all these people saying stuff, about networks being set up and videos and blackmail and an envelope full of cash. And I'm thinking, damn, they've been watching some movies, haven't they?
I know, I was thinking that too. It sounds like a bad spy movie.
I know.
If you go to the house to pay them off, why would you have bothered putting the cash in a manila envelope if you were going to be inside the house?
Who knows? But then the other one is that I went to a restaurant and split it across the table to them.
I know. Like, what is that? Why not both payments at the house? Wouldn't that have made more sense?
Well, none of it makes sense, and I keep telling Chris, I said, why can't I just offer to go take a lie detector test and put all this to bed? But
and if you're going to bring a large amount of cash, why would you take it out of the bank envelope to put it into a big manila envelope just to take it inside to a house and hand it to somebody?
Why would I give it to those wads of bubble gum anyway?
But Deb starts talking about when she was in the kitchen. She was laughing, making sandwiches, thinking about all this talk of people setting up networks and videos and envelopes full of cash. And I'm thinking they've been watching some movies. Sterns jumps right in with his mom and says, yeah, I was thinking that too. Sounds like a bad spy movie, I think he says. And then Stephan is like nitpicking the weirdest stuff. Plus, if you came to the house to pay them off, why would you put the cash in a manila envelope to pay them off when you were going to be inside the house? Who knows, Deb says. Sterns says, who were you trying to keep it from? That was weird. And then, slid it across the table, Deb says. And Sterns says, yeah, why not both payments at the house? Wouldn't that have made more sense, instead of one at the restaurant, one at the house? Sterns and Deb are talking at the same time here, but Deb is saying she told Chris, why don't they take a lie detector test and put all this to bed? And Sterns is still talking about, if you had a large sum of cash that you pulled out of the bank, and then he repeats, if you had all this cash you pulled out of the bank, why wouldn't you leave it in the bank envelope instead of putting it in a manila envelope just to hand it to somebody inside a house? It's really curious to me when people start doing this and nitpicking certain details of the story. It's very curious that Stephan just did not flat out say, I never had any network videos or anything I did in the townhome that was illegal, nothing that they could have blackmailed you guys for. I've never done any, thing. He doesn't flat out say, he doesn't deny it. He's just like, I don't know, nitpicking. And Deb says, why would I give it to those wads of bubble gum anyway? They have the mental capacity of 3-year-old.
Well, they have the mental capacity of a 3-year-old. He was a terrible liar anyway. He lied about big things. He lied about little things. He lied to women all the time. He lied just to, make himself seem cooler or maybe gain more acceptance. But he just lied. He was one of those people that lied for no reason. It's like, buddy, you don't have to lie. Like, we already lied to you. You're already our friend. There's no need to lie or build yourself up,
Because they're a habitual liar, and it's hard when you're a liar to keep the truth straight because you change it every time you tell somebody something.
I don't know. I just used to laugh it off and dismiss it.
Yeah, well, it's weird. There's some weird. They're so weird. I don't know.
Yeah. Whatever. He was probably counting his money, walking away laughing, saying, thank you, Stephan.
Yeah, probably.
Stephan says Sir Lancelot was a liar. He was a terrible liar. He lied to women. He lied about big things. He lied about little things. He was just one of those people who lied for no reason, just to make himself seem cooler. Stephan says, buddy, there's no need to lie. We already like you. You're already our friend. Deb says they are habitual liars, and it's hard to keep the truth straight with a liar because the story changes every time you tell somebody something. Can't Deb see the irony in her saying something like this about Stephan's friend and not about Stephan himself? Birds of a feather tend to flock together. Obviously, she's got to compare notes throughout all these conversations, all this court stuff, all these interviews, throughout her entire lifetime, too. I'm sure she's caught Stephan in plenty of lies. Like, at least Chris admits if Stephan's mouth is moving, he's lying. Chris is no nonsense. He sees through the BS. But Sterns says, I don't know, I just used to laugh it off and dismiss it. Deb's like, it's weird. They're so weird. Stephan says, yeah, whatever. Then Stephan's like, he was probably laughing and walking away and counting his money and saying, thank you, Stephan. So is Stephan referencing his friend getting money from a YouTuber and not from the payoff? The way he described that scene almost sounds like Deb really did pay him off. But no, he's trying to create some scenario of, a YouTuber paying Stephan's friends. Deb says, yeah, probably.
These people they don't have a moral compass. They have no conscience. They have nothing redeeming about them. I'm sure God can find something, but he's going to have to dig. Well, and I don't think they're looking to him for anything anyway. So
they definitely didn't have any honor or integrity. It's one of the reasons I ended up cutting them out of my life.
No.
It took me too long to do it.
Then she has the nerve to say, these people have no moral compass. They have no conscience. No redeeming qualities about them. I'm sure God can find some, but he's going to have to dig deep. Now, where does all this rank in the mind of Deb in terms of comparing it to a pedo who may have taken the life of a little girl? She's going off about no moral conscience, just because she's claiming these ex-roommates are lying about her son. But in terms of what Stephan did to Maddie, there's nothing you could do, Stephan, that'll make me stop loving you. She'll say that coming up. Deb says, I don't think they're looking to him for anything anyway. So basically she's calling his friends godless. Stephan chimes in laughably. They don't have honor and integrity. That's one of the reasons I ended up cutting them out of my life. Just took me too long to do it. So everything with Stephan was someone else's fault. These friends, he had to cut them out of his life. And he acts like he went on to be this military hero or something, this man of great integrity after cutting these yahoos out of his life. But then it's like the same pattern. He's going to talk about Jenn, and he's going to get into her actions and attitude and temperament. And I should have broken up with her a long time ago. I wouldn't have been in this, in essence, he's saying. Everything with Stephan is like, those horrible friends I had to cut them out of my life. Oh, Jennifer, she wouldn't let me discipline Maddie or anything. I just had to watch the train wreck happen. Stephan never takes outright culpability pretty much for anything. Just in different calls he's going to talk about, I wish I wasn't so careless with the people in my life. That's about it. I notice when the BS is creeping this high, Chris is just silent. He's probably rolling his eyes harder and farther back than I've rolled my eyes so many times listening to this crap.
Back to what I was saying, I was thinking about, how God uses hardship as a vehicle to move people.
Right.
Human nature being what it is, even if we're not where we're supposed to be in life, we'll stay there if we're comfortable enough.
Yeah.
It changes, and so God uses hardship as motivation and a vehicle to move us to where we need to be in life.
You know what he did with me and Dinky?
Yeah.
I remember standing in that pasture over his body, flipping God off and telling him how much I hated him, but that was the reason that I got saved. Because I lost Binky.
Well, all this happened and, passed away, and that immediately brought me back to God. That was the first thing I did, was beg God to take me and spare her.
But Stephan's like, back to what I was saying. I was thinking about how God uses hardship as a vehicle to move people, human nature being what it is. Even if we're not supposed to be there in life, whatever point, we'll stay there if we are comfortable enough. It almost sounds like a confession to me at first. I thought he said sin nature, but he said human nature. So it shows you God uses hardship as motivation and a vehicle to us to where we're supposed to be in life. And isn't it ironic how many times Sterns mentions God using a vehicle to move people? And I keep thinking, I know he doesn't mean a literal vehicle, he's speaking metaphorically, but you can't help but think about Stephan using a vehicle to move Maddie all around her dead body around. Well, Deb chimes in to her salvation moment. You know what he did with me and Binky. Sounds like maybe she's talking about a child she lost. I don't know. Deb says, I remember standing in that casket. She says in that casket, looking at his body, flipping God off, telling him how much I hated him. But that was the reason I got saved, because I lost Binky. Stephan says, yep, all this happened. Maddie passed away. That immediately brought me back to God. The first thing I did was ask God to take me and spare her. So Stephan, why wasn't the first thing you did was, first of all, to not do what you did, but also to call 911 if you just so happened to discover Maddie? So I got to pause here and say, yes, God can use unfortunate circumstances in our lives to save us. In fact, I got saved. My mom died 1999, October 4th. I'll never forget. She was only 68 years old, died unexpectedly in her sleep. I was 30. It rocked my world. I wondered where she went. I turned to Jesus. I got serious about God. I'd been on the path like Christianity. I was like, oh yeah, that old boring Christianity. I was raised Episcopalian, like whatever. It hadn't touched me. I didn't understand back then. I was like, why is Jesus on the cross? Why do I have to talk to God through him? I didn't understand his power, his sacrifice, and all that. I wanted to be able to go to heaven, see my mom again, so I truly got into God. But I hate the way right here Sterns makes it sound like God took Maddie just so Sterns could be closer to him. Anyway, Deb says, everybody who loves somebody will do that. I have to keep reminding us all at this point that Deb already knows Stephan had all these horrible 1,700 videos and photos and stuff of Sterns abusing Maddie. So where is this love? Why is she pretending that Sterns loved Maddie? That's warped. That's not love.
Everybody who loves somebody will do that. So
I haven't stopped praying.
No, if you love somebody, you would rather take their pain than have them have it.
Yeah, I would have died for her, but I told God, I said, I see what you did. You immediately brought me back to you, and that I had strayed for a long time, and message received. My eyes are open. I just wish it didn't have such a high price attached to it. And it's just, I don't know.
I haven't stopped praying, Sterns says. He just keeps getting interrupted by his mom. And she says, so you rather take their pain than for them to have it. So now she's painting Stephan out to be this martyr instead of pegging him as the one who caused Maddie so much pain and ultimately her death, as he's accused of doing. Stephan says, yeah, I would have died for her. So now he's kind of quoting lines from his For Maddie poem he wrote when he wrote, I would have died for you. And Sterns says he told God, oh, I see what you did. You immediately brought me back to you. I strayed for a long time. Message received. Oh, that really gets me. My eyes are open. Wish it didn't have such a high price attached to it. I can see Stephan does not understand God with this statement. God by no means wanted Maddie to suffer what she went through, abuse, or have her life taken away, just to bring Stephan closer to him, into the Christian fold or whatever. Just imagine Stephan's hubris by thinking, oh, God needed to take Maddie's life to save Stephan somehow, like she had to be some sacrifice. No, God already gave up his one and only begotten son, Jesus. He's the perfect sacrifice. Jesus laid down his life for us. Jesus went through horrible torture. He died for all of us. All Stephan had to do was accept Jesus. He can still do that now. Fall on the rock, confess his sins. He will be forgiven if he's truly repentant, not if he's running game on his parents to get money, running game to try and pretend to be like some Christian, just so he hopes it'll get him out, just so he can, go abuse more children? No. God did not take Maddie away to bring Stephan anywhere near him. So I hate that he's like, message received, God. It's infuriating. As if God was trying to send him some message by killing Maddie or allowing her to be killed. It reminds me of John Walsh, the father of Adam Walsh, the little boy who went missing. He died horribly. John said he had people at Adam's funeral say to him, it's God's will, and John clapped back and said, this is not God's will to have a little boy decapitated. Like, who would believe that that's God's will? That's obviously evil. We don't have to get goofy and weird because we're Christians or we believe. You got to open the Bible and learn God's real will, not just these platitudes or what he thinks God's will is. Or
sometimes you have to look at why it was taken, and it was her time. God knows what's going to happen to you when you're born. He knows every moment of your life that's coming. So,
I know he has a plan, and every day I've been reaffirming to myself and reassuring myself that I have to be patient and maintain my faith and have faith that He has a plan for me, whatever it may be, that it will be revealed in time. And that all I need to do is be patient and maintain my faith in Him and trust.
Well, you got to trusting. You got to maintain your sanity. You got to maintain your cool. And like Xavier told me, when he was in jail, the only thing that saved him was trying to keep a sense of humor about the situation, even though it was terrible.
I don't have much of a sense of humor anymore, to be honest. A very large part of me died when she did.
No.
I'm not the same person anymore, and I don't think I ever will be. And there's some wounds that just don't ever heal.
Deborah says, sometimes you have to look at why Maddie was taken and you know it was her time. This is a horrific statement. It's like Sterns is blaming God for Maddie's death. Deb is like, it was Maddie's time, but it was not. God did not take her. You know, this is as bad as the people who flippantly told John Walsh, you know, your little boy Adam died horribly at the hands of this monster, but it was God's will. No, I mean, just keep God's name out of your mouth if you're going to assign such horrific tendencies like that to him. But Deb says God knows what's going to happen to you when you're born. He knows every moment of your life that's coming. It's almost as if she's saying, well, God knew Maddie was going to die as a 13-year-old, so that must have been what God wanted. Or almost as if she's giving Sterns credit for taking Maddie out of her horrible environment. Sterns says, yeah, I know he has a plan, and every day I've been reaffirming and reassuring myself that you have to have patience and maintain my faith that he has a plan for me, whatever it might be, it will be revealed in time, and all I need to do is just be patient and maintain my faith in him and trust. And Deb says, you got to trust, you got to maintain your sanity, you got to maintain your cool. Deb is saying, Xavier told me when he was in jail, the only thing that saved him was trying to keep a sense of humor about the situation, even though it was terrible. Stephan says, oh, I don't have much of a sense of humor anymore, to be honest. A very large part of me died when she did. So once again, Sterns is quoting that poem, a line similar to his poem, as I held you in my arms, my heart died with you. I know that by heart because that line was just such a confession to me. He was admitting holding Maddie in his arms, his heart dying as she died, like he was right there when she died. I'm not the same person anymore. I don't think I'll ever be. There's some wounds that just don't ever heal.
Well, I'm assuming that they are treating you for PTSD because you found the body, not to mention everything else that went along with that.
You know, not treating me for anything except my blood pressure.
Well, they need to do the PTSD because you're not sleeping.
Well, you know, I keep telling myself that I have to maintain my faith. Without faith and trust in God, I have nothing, and therefore I'm keeping that, you know?
Well, just remember that not everybody knows who God is, and not everybody who's walking around is not a demon. Some are demons.
Deb says, well, I'm assuming they're treating you for PTSD because you found the body. Not to mention everything that went along with that. Stephan says, no, they're not treating me for anything except my blood pressure. Deb says, well, they need to do the PTSD because you're not sleeping. She just has so much concern for Sterns. And I'm like, where is your concern and empathy for Maddie? She just gives her some left-handed compliments like, oh, she was a special child. You know, Stephan says, well, I keep telling myself I have to maintain my faith. Without faith and trust in God, I have nothing. That's why I'm keeping that, you know. Deb says, just remember that not everybody knows who God is and that not everybody walking around is not a demon. Some are demons. I'm thinking, yeah, Deb, you might be talking to one, okay? Again, Satan masquerades as an angel of light. And what was it, David, when he said he was surprised? If an enemy had raised his heel against me, I would, expect it. But it was you, my close brother, my friend. It's surprising when someone close to you is evil.
I keep telling God that I trust you and I have faith in you. Please deliver me from this. Please deliver me from the people who are trying to destroy me. And I just want to see my parents again.
Well, we'd like to see you too. It's been awfully quiet without you.
How can you say that with the dogs?
What?
I asked your mother, I said, how can she say it's been quiet with the dogs?
relatively, I guess. But,
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, nobody to say, hey, are you making ramen?
yeah, that ramen was a big hit. I used to remember she would have such a mischievous little evil smile on her face when I made a fresh bowl of ramen, and she'd try a bite and then steal the rest of the bowl and walk away while staring evil looks and smiles at me. I miss that.
No.
Stephan says, I keep telling God that I trust you, I believe in you. Please deliver me from this. Please deliver me from the people who are trying to destroy me. And I just want to see my parents again. First of all, who's trying to destroy you? Is he talking about the roommates, or is he talking about knowing he might be destroyed on death row? I don't know. I'm like, sure, Sterns, you miss your parents. You told the cops they were two old deaf people yelling at each other that you needed a break from. But Deb says, well, we'd like to see you too. It's been awfully quiet without you. Now it's time for Chris to chime in with his jokes. Chris is like, how can she say it's been quiet with the dogs? Deb, nobody to say, hey, you making ramen? Deb laughs, and Stephan has to go right back to his favorite topic, Maddie. Yeah, that ramen was a big hit with Maddie. I used to remember she would have such a mischievous little evil smile on her face when I made a fresh bowl of ramen, and she'd try a bit and then she'd steal the rest of the bowl and then walk away while staring evil looks and smiles at me. I miss that. Oh, it's so gross. First of all, he's assigning these evil tendencies to Maddie, and then he's just like, I miss that. Ugh.
She was a very special child, and I wish this did not happen that way, and I wish a lot of things had not happened the way they happened, and you know what I'm talking about?
Yep, too.
So I don't understand that. I don't think there's ever anything that anybody could say to me that would make me understand that. So I'm not even going to go further than that into it, but just know that I don't care what you did. There is nothing that would make me hate you. There is nothing that would make me turn my back on you.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome, sweetheart.
And, I just going up for visits and bringing new snacks or new treats for her to try, or showing her new video games or her games and things like that. I miss that.
This is when Deb says, well, she was a very special child, and I wish that it not happened that way, and I wish a lot of things had not happened, and you know what I'm talking about. Sounds like Deb is finally slightly acknowledging the abuse here, and she will in other episodes of calls too. Stern says, yep, me too. Isn't it interesting, him saying me too at that point? Deb says, I don't understand that. I don't think there's anybody who could ever say to me anything to me to make me understand that. So she's talking about the CSAM, the abuse, I believe. She doesn't understand why her son did it, why he's into that. Later, she's going to ask him if he's attracted to children in future calls. But Deb says, so I'm not even going to go further into that. Just know that there's nothing that can make me hate you. Nothing that will make me turn my back on you. Well, I appreciate that, Mom. Thank you, Stephan says. But notice that Chris does not chime in to concur. Well, you're welcome, sweetheart. So Stephan's back on Maddie. Well, going up for visits, bringing new snacks, new treats for her to try, showing her new video games, card games, and stuff like that. I miss that. 1 minute remaining.
Oh, you got the 1 minute notice.
Yeah, there it is again. Well, I'll try to call back in another 15 minutes, but you know the deal. If you don't hear from me then, I'll try to call back in the next few days.
Okay, we'll catch up to you then.
Love you, honey.
Love you too, and I'll try again in 15 minutes, okay?
Okay.
There it is again. Stern says, I'll try and call you back in another 15 minutes because he really hasn't asked for money yet. But you know the deal. If you don't hear from me, I'll try to call back in the next few days. Okay, we'll talk to you then. Love you, honey. Sterns does try to call back at 8:45 p.m. and it says you can't make calls for another 5 minutes.
The time is 8:45 p.m. Press star 9021 after this message. Press 1 to place a call. Press 2. Please enter your PIN number. You may not make calls for 5 minutes. Error code 158.
So this is the last call on June 1st, and this is the last one we'll cover today. 8:51 p.m. on June 1st. He calls back and he has to repeat the United States of America. He needs to talk up. Now notice Stephan's balance is down to 2275, and throughout all these calls we can hear his different balance depleting or different ones being refilled when we go over more.
The time is 8:51 p.m.
United States of America.
After the tone, please say again, United States of America.
United States of America.
You have 1 old message. To listen to your messages, please return to the main menu. Press 0 to make a pre for calls within the United States. Your account balance is $22.75. The cost of this call will be 21 cents for the first minute and 21 cents for each additional minute, excluding taxes and other applicable fees. The time limit is 15 minutes. Hello, you have a call at no expense to you from
Stephan Sterns.
This call will be recorded and subject to monitoring at any time. Thank you for using IC Solutions. You may begin speaking.
Hi. Yes.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, just getting back to what I was saying, just faith and trust, and message received.
So they answer and they're asking, okay, can you hear me? And Deb chimes in and she's pretty chipper again saying yes. And Stephan says, okay, now getting back to what I was saying, faith and trust and message received. Deb says, I just wish you had come to us sooner and let us know what was going on. Sterns takes a beat and he's like, well, I was suffering from a bit of cowardice.
I guess if there's one thing that we wish for is that you had come to us sooner. If you had come to us and let us know what was going on.
Well, unfortunately, I was suffering from a bit of cowardice.
What does that mean? Again, he always takes the opportunity to cast himself as the victim. He was the one victimizing Maddie. Deb saying there's nothing you could do that would make me stop loving you. Back to what he was saying, they're like, okay, I wish you'd come to us and told us what's going on. Sterns is like, I was suffering from a bit of cowardice. Cowardice. So he's trying to make himself sound weak instead of as the predator, which is what he was. Thankfully, Chris is chiming in again with his platitudes. Yeah, hindsight is 20/20. You can't do anything about it now.
Yeah, but hindsight's always 20/20, and can't do anything about it now. But this thing
It's bigger because of it.
It's a bigger problem because of that, and again, not sure what would be any. I'm sure there would be some things different if you had chosen that path, because there's obviously nothing we could have done without. Well, there's nothing we could have done. I mean, there was only one choice, but we could have talked our way through this. I mean, the phone call that you made to me earlier in the afternoon, if you had at least shared that, we could have talked our way through that and figured out a much better solution than whatever whatever you guys came up with, because none of that was believable.
But the thing is, and Deb jumps in and says it's bigger now because of it. Chris jumps in and the audio is kind of warped still. And I tried to voice enhance it, but he's mimicking Deb, and Chris is saying, yeah, it's a bigger problem because of it. Not sure basically if it would have made a difference if Sterns had told them more. He's saying, or if you would have chosen the path, and not sure if anything we could have done without, and then he stops himself from saying going to the cops, but then he says there's only one choice. So we know what Chris is talking about. If you would have come to us, we would have taken it to the cops. Chris says we could have talked our way through this. The phone call you made to me early in the afternoon, he's talking about Monday when he was, Sterns was telling his dad about the flat tire and all that. Chris was like, if you could have shared that, we could have talked our way through it. Now, Chris is a smart man. He's letting it be known again that Stephan did not tell him anything that was going on Monday, February 26th. He told his dad about the flat tire, but not about the fact that he had just hidden Maddie's body amongst bamboo. Chris says we could have figured out a much better solution than whatever you guys came up with. So notice how Chris is using the plural, whatever you guys came up with. Automatically, he's assuming Stephan didn't act alone. He's assuming Jenn was involved. And Chris said none of that was believable. It's true.
And, I was thinking earlier today or yesterday that somehow I feel that you were forced into this, and I don't know, and that's just my speculation, that you were compromised and you were forced to participate in this, and as soon as you got away from the rest of them, you should have called me, and we should have and could have discussed this, and the outcome would have been a lot different than what it is right now.
I don't want to get your hopes up, and as I said, don't get carried away with any conspiracy theories, but in a way I was compromised, and, when all that stuff was happening, I was not in my right mind anymore.
Yeah, well, I understand that, and that's when you probably should have just called me and said, hey, I've got a bit of a situation here, and
that would have been the rational thing to do, but at that point I was no longer capable of rational actions or thoughts.
Yep, I understand. Yep.
Incapable of it. I had no control over my faculties anymore. It's like the motor was running, but there was a screaming chimpanzee behind the wheel.
Chris said, I was thinking earlier today or yesterday, I just feel, you were forced to participate in this. And Chris admits it's his speculation. He's like, that you were compromised and you were forced to participate in this. So I get it. Chris is saying he believes Jennifer had a hand in Maddie's death, and Stephan didn't have clean hands himself because he was already abusing Maddie. So it's like Jennifer used that to make Stephan do her dirty work by getting rid of Maddie. Anyway, Chris is saying, and as soon as you got away from the rest of them, you should have called me and we could have discussed this, and the outcome would have been a lot different than what it is right now. So obviously, Chris is assuming, kind of like Deb, Jennifer had a big role in it. Maybe Jennifer did away with Maddie. If Stephan would have flipped on Jennifer that day, Jenn could have been the one going to jail, and maybe Stephan could have struck some kind of deal. I don't know if it would have worked. That's the scenario his parents are believing, because, they're trying to believe hook, line, and sinker this BS Stephan is purporting. They don't want to see their son as a murderer or a child abuser. And Sterns is like, I don't want to get your hopes up. Don't believe in any conspiracy theories, but in a way I was compromised. He's using his dad's words. Oh yeah, I was compromised. When all that stuff was happening, I was not in my right mind anymore. Chris says, yeah, I understand that, and that's when you should have called me. And Stephan says that would have been the rational thing to do, but at that point I was no longer capable of rational actions or thoughts. Well, I'm pretty sure all of the body cam videos of Sterns and the interviews and everything taken that Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, they disprove what he's saying here. They negate that. Sterns was very capable of rational thinking and trying to elude police and evade questions and, factory resetting his phone. And we've heard all the interviews. But he's like saying, I had no control over my faculties anymore. It's like the motor was running and there was a screaming chimpanzee behind the wheel. Stephan once again puts himself behind the driver's seat, talking about vehicles.
Yeah.
I understand that. I don't understand lack of emotion.
Yeah, I don't know.
It wasn't like she was catatonic. She was talking in a normal voice. The only thing that showed any emotion at all was jiggling her leg, but she did that anyway. So
Yeah,
I guess she was anxious because she was lying to her teeth. That's okay.
don't get your hopes up for any conspiracy theories or vast conspiracies. Just understand that anything I did was not done while being within my rational mind. I had snapped at that point.
Deb turns everything right back on Jennifer, you know. She says, I understand that. I don't understand the lack of emotion. It's not like she was catatonic. She was talking in a normal voice. She didn't seem to show any emotion at all when she was jiggling her leg, but she did that anyway. So Deb must be talking about the portions of the news interview where we saw Jennifer, you know, shaking her leg. And Stephan says, yeah, it's just an anxious thing. Deb says, yeah, she was anxious because she was lying through her teeth. And I'm thinking, what about Stephan lying through his teeth that whole time? They're not focused on that. You know, Chris just says, oh, it wasn't believable, whatever you guys came up with. But they're like, have so much hate directed toward Jenn. So Stephan exhales really hard and it's like, don't get your hopes up for any conspiracy theories or vast conspiracies. Just understand that anything done was not done while I was in my rational mind and I had snapped at that point. So that kind of sounds like another confession, claiming he snapped, he wasn't in his right mind. So what made him snap is the question. Was it Maddie telling him no or thinking she may have been pregnant or whatever? What made him snap and what did he do as a result? So he's like, don't get your hopes up for vast conspiracies. But he's the one kind of purporting the conspiracies by kind of, you'll see, where he kind of throws Jennifer under the bus some more. He'll give them just these breadcrumbs, but then he pulls back. Because is he really going to blame Jennifer for Maddie's death or what?
Yeah. And I wish I had done the correct thing to begin with. You know, I wish I had run downstairs and shaken her awake and called 911 and all that. And deserved the
I wish you had too. I wish you had too. Maybe she could have been saved, but
she was beyond that.
Okay.
You know, when someone's that ice cold and just gone.
She was in a different part of the house?
Yeah.
Anyway, Stephan is like, I wish I had done the correct thing to begin with, you know. I wish I had run downstairs, shaken her awake, and called 911 and all that. So once again, Stephan is putting himself upstairs with Maddie's dead body, saying he wishes he would have immediately run downstairs, shaken Jennifer awake, and called 911. So at that point, he's corroborating the notion that Jennifer was asleep. Like he's already telling on himself in so many ways. So it looks like they redacted something here. So I wonder what they took out. And Deb says, at least Maddie had Stephan or something like that, something crazy. It's like she's saying, at least she had you. And it sounds like Stephan is saying Maddie deserves something. Ooh, now, Deb is saying, I wish you had too. Maybe she could have been saved. But Stephan is saying, no, she was beyond that. You know when someone's ice cold and just gone? Once again, Stephan is probably just digging himself into a deeper hole because he's claiming Maddie was ice cold in her body temperature. So if he can't prove that he was out of the house for an hour or two, wherever he was, he's toast. I looked it up. It says after death, a body cools at a rate of about 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit per hour until it reaches the ambient temperature. A colder environment will cause the body to cool faster. Larger bodies retain heat longer than smaller bodies. So Maddie had a small 110-pound body. And clothing can insulate the body and slow down the heat loss. But it's saying the body will eventually reach the temperature of its surroundings, which typically takes 18 to 20 hours. So I'm wondering what happened. Did something happen immediately to Maddie at 11 p.m., like when they went to bed? Did he take her life then and then not until morning? He's remembering dawn. Was she cold then? Did something happen at 2 a.m. or something when the roommate heard him placing stuff on the table? Like, by him saying, you know, she's ice cold, her lips are blue and all that, it's like he's giving inadvertent hints as to her time of death, as if it happened right away at 11 p.m. or something. So Chris is like, wait, was she in a different part of the house? And Stephan's like, yeah.
She wasn't with you?
Well, she had gone to be with me earlier in the night, but I'd left her alone for quite a while I was sort of just walking around and haunting around the house like I do. Sometimes I go out for walks at night, or I just sit on the couch and just fiddle around on my phone, or just, I don't sleep well at night, especially when I've got to be up early and do something the next day.
Yeah.
And that was the case. So every time I realized anything was wrong, it was
She was in a different part of the house when you found that out.
She was still upstairs.
Oh, she was upstairs. Okay.
Yeah, I left her alone there.
Oh, okay.
I had gone downstairs for a while, and by the time I realized anything was wrong, it was just far too late. She'd been gone for a while.
And he's like, she wasn't with you? Stephan says, well, she had wanted to be with me earlier in the night, but I left her alone for quite a bit. I left her alone for quite a while I was just sort of walking around, haunting around the house like I do. Very weird for him to use that word, haunting, in this case at that point. And then he starts going into not what he did that night, but he's like, sometimes I'll go out for walks at night, or I'll just sit around on the couch or fiddle on my phone. But it should be relatively easy, I believe, to claim, if he's going to take this to trial and claim, oh, I was out walking around for 2 hours and came back and she was gone, around the neighborhood, they would have footage of that. Or is he just going to claim he went downstairs and sat on the couch and fiddled around on his phone? Well, did anyone hear him or see him, or, the movements of his phone? They have all that. So they can easily prove or disprove what he's saying. The forensics will show if he was upstairs in that room the whole time or just came to the bathroom and then went back. So he's just toast. But he's saying, I don't sleep very well, especially when I have to be up early and do something the next day. And Deborah chimes in and is like, yep. So I don't know if that was the case, Stephan said, but by the time I realized anything was wrong, it was much too late. And at this point, Chris is stepping on his words and he's asking, okay, was she in a different part of the house? And he's trying to get the facts, And Stephan's like, she was still upstairs. And at the same time, Deb says she was upstairs. Yeah, I'd left her alone there, Stephan claims. Yeah, I'd gone downstairs for a while, and by the time I realized anything was wrong, it was far too late. She'd been gone for a while. To see her pale face and blue lips and how ice cold she was. That's what Sterns is claiming about Maddie. He starts to say something else here, but of course Deborah steps on his words and says, yeah, these things stay with you.
Okay.
Just seeing her pale face and blue lips and how ice cold she was, and it's great.
It's going to stay with you. Yeah, that's
I remember seeing my brother when he had passed away, and that's the last thing I remember seeing of him. And so.
Yeah, it's just, you can tell.
Yes, you can. My dad, yeah.
It's just, when they're gone, really, really, truly gone, it's nothing you can do. There's no coming back.
Yeah.
No, there isn't.
Yeah, she was past the point of no return.
So by him describing what he saw of Maddie, of course, the liars always put truths in there. And so he probably did see her pale face and her, feel her ice cold skin and her blue lips. But he doesn't understand what that's going to reveal scientifically about times of death and estimations and everything. So Deb is like, maybe she knows he's about to incriminate himself. She's talking over him. And she's like, yeah, basically, those things stay with you. Chris is like, yeah, I remember seeing my brother when he passed away, and that's the last thing I remember seeing of him. And Sterns just says, yeah, you can tell. And Deb says, yes, you can. Deb says, yeah, my dad. And Stephan says, when they're truly gone, there's nothing you can do. There's no coming back. He's trying to make it seem like he just found her that way. There was nothing he could do. He's trying to make it seem like I couldn't have saved her life in any shape or form. However, I don't know. I don't believe that Maddie was truly gone like he's describing. I don't think he was out of the room for hours like he's claiming. And there's plenty of things you could have done anyway. Even if far-fetched fairy tale was true, if he came and discovered her like that, you would have just called 911. But no, there isn't. Deb is saying there's nothing you can do. And Stephan saying she was past the point of no return. So now it sounds like something is redacted here about Jennifer, but Deb calls the craziness of the grandma and Maddie already being called Gordo. Maddie would have been the next one on the list for gastric bypass.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, given the crazies of the grandmom and already starting to call her a Gordo, she would have been the next one on the list for gastric bypass, but I just think, maybe God just delivered her out of a place that was going to become really bad for her.
I mean, I always knew that life was going to be hard for her. Her mom certainly didn't do her any favors, and since I had no say in the matter of how she was raised or disciplined or anything, there was nothing I could do about it. Sit back and watch the train wreck as it unfolded.
Now, I looked up in Spanish, gordo generally means fat or overweight when referring to a person or animal, but it can be used colloquially as a term of endearment or describe something as thick or big. Now, that's an interesting viewpoint, though. If Yolanda had indeed started calling Maddie Gordo, and if she meant it in a way like, hey, girl, you're getting a little fat, you're getting a little thick, it's another thing that leads me to, was Maddie pregnant? And again, never any victim blaming, it's just an observation. I wondered. But here we go. Deb is like, I just think, maybe God delivered her out of a place that was going to become really bad for her. Stephan says, I always knew life was going to be hard for her. I mean, her mom didn't do her any favors, and since I had no say in how she was raised or disciplined, there was nothing I could do about it but just sit back and watch the train wreck as it unfolded. He's acting like if he were allowed to discipline Maddie or something, her life would have been better. Now, he's the same man who was abusing her. And Jennifer did say in her interviews, somewhere in one of those, that Stephan wasn't allowed to, discipline Maddie, as he shouldn't have been. Jennifer, he held no place of honor. He hadn't married Jennifer. He was abusing Maddie, so he didn't deserve to be able to discipline Maddie. But Jennifer said somewhere in one of those interviews that, I think it was Jennifer saying, yeah, Stephan, if he was trying to tell Maddie something or whatever, it's like, you're not her dad,
Yeah, and she's trying to tell everybody that she was a little angel and she had no problems with her, and you were already telling us that they were butting heads like two Rocky Mountain lambs.
Yeah, they got physical on a couple of occasions.
Yeah, I figured they did that again. But okay.
I often played mediator between the two of them because I was the only one that could talk either of them down when they started going at it with each other.
Yeah, I know.
Where were the roommates when all this is going on?
Upstairs, doing their own things.
Was all that screaming and yelling and crap going on? Yeah. I'm surprised they stayed.
And then Deb says, yeah, Jenn is trying to tell everybody that Maddie was a little angel and she had no problems with her, but Stephan was already telling us that, they were butting heads like two Rocky Mountain rams. And then Stephan again with the breadcrumbs. Yeah, Maddie and Jenn basically had gotten physical on a couple of occasions. And Deb says, yeah, I figured they did it again. So we know she told her theory. Deb told her cops the theory. Jenn probably walked in on Stephan and Maddie unclothed, and Jenn maybe broke her neck or something. So this is what Deb's thinking is. But to me, Deb is obviously trying to devalue Maddie in not so subtle ways here. Claiming it's her time, or she was living a bad life, or how she called her precocious, and just these little, I don't know, kind of left-handed compliments, and it's like she's placing Stephan's life above Maddie's life and value. But Stephan says he often played mediator between the two of them because he was the only one who could talk them down when they started going at it with each other. Well, he was probably a very large source of contention between them too, So, yeah, I know, Deb says, but then Chris asks, again, the pointed questions. Where were the roommates when all this was going on? Upstairs doing their own things. With all that screaming and yelling going on, Deb asked. Sounds like she's saying, I'm surprised they paid, but Sterns is talking over her. Sterns says, well, that wasn't out of place in that house with Jenn, perhaps, I think he's talking about Jenn, getting into screaming and loud crying and outburst and given to yelling and screaming and coming down on people. So he's trying to paint Jennifer like this emotional maniac. I did hear she had crying fits and crying jags. In some interview, they said she used to go out to the car and cry. I'm trying to remember what that was.
Honestly, it wasn't that far out of place in that house. Was often given to yelling or loud crying or outbursts, and was given to yelling and screaming and coming down on people. It was happening a lot more and more often, which is why I kept trying to tell you, I think maybe your meds are becoming less effective. It seems like you're becoming more erratic and more unstable. It seemed like the more stable I became, the more unstable she became, like we switched places.
Well, I always told you she was a black hole of need. Well, there's nothing to do about it now, but what I hate the worst is that she's sitting in a hospital having 3 meals a day, clean sheets, television, access to phone, reading, walking around free, taking a shower by herself, and you're sitting where you are.
Yeah, I guarantee her food's probably a lot better than mine.
Oh, I guarantee there's a lot of stuff that's better than yours.
Anyway, Sterns says, okay, it was happening more often. He claims he was telling Jennifer, I think your meds are becoming less effective. It seems like you're becoming more erratic and more unstable. So again, he's painting the picture, just giving them these breadcrumbs, this crazy whacked out mother that could have killed her daughter. But, he's trying to create doubt, but he's not going out and saying it. He's just like, yeah, she was getting more erratic. He's like, it seems like the more unstable Jennifer became, the more stable he became. We switched places. Deb says, well, I always told you she was a black hole of need. A black hole of need. Well, nothing to do about it now, Deb says, but she's angry that Jennifer is somewhere in the hospital with clean sheets, getting 3 meals a day, reading, walking around free, taking showers by herself, and you're sitting where you are. And yeah, I can bet you her food's a lot better than mine, Stephan says, taking the opportunity to once again play victim and, bringing it around to him like, Mom and Dad, more money on the commissary. Well, I guarantee you there's a lot better stuff than yours. Well, it'll all come out in the wash, Chris says. Those platitudes.
Well, it'll all come out in the wash.
Yeah, well,
hopefully.
Very, 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 very slim chance of doing anything about any of this. And I'm praying to God and asking for His help to make it possible. But
well, how about giving up the chivalrous part and lay some truthisms on?
What's that?
I said, quit being so chivalrous and protective of. Start laying some truth bombs on her. There's truth bombs there.
Maybe none as groundbreaking or bombastic as you might hope for, but there are some truths there, some ugly truths and some not so pretty truths, but I guess I reacted to everything the way I did because I wanted to shield her. I wanted to keep her from getting any blowback or anything, but
you shouldn't have.
Hopefully, Deb says, and Sterns says, I have a very, very, very slim chance about doing anything about all of this. I'm praying to God and asking for His help to make it possible. So Deb is like, look, how about you give up the chivalrous part and lay some truthisms on Jenn? What's that? Sterns says, pretending not to hear her. Deborah repeats it. I said, what about giving up the chivalry part and laying some truth bombs on Jenn? There's truth bombs there. Sterns says, well, maybe not as groundbreaking or bombastic as you might hope for, but there's some truth there. There's some ugly truths. There's some not so pretty truths. He's pausing, probably sucking on candy still. And then again, he's the martyr. I guess I reacted to everything I did because I wanted to shield her. What kind of sense is this making? Sterns is claiming he wanted to protect Jennifer, and that's the reason he didn't call 911, but instead drove Maddie's dead body out to the bamboo. Anyway, I wanted to keep her from getting any blowback from this. What is Sterns going on about? Deb is like, well, you shouldn't have. You shouldn't have, Deb says, because that left them only one person to lay everything on, and that was you. Sterns is like, yep. So Chris is notably, again, quiet when all this BS is flying around.
You shouldn't have, because that left them only one person to lay everything on. That was you.
Yep. And, I should have just done the correct thing from the get-go and let the chips fall where they may. But I couldn't stand the idea of losing them both horribly like that. And I lost them both anyway, so it was pointless.
Yeah.
There was just so much agony and so much pain, so much shock and so much trauma. My mind was just not, it wasn't me anymore. I wasn't in control of myself anymore. I was doing things that I wouldn't do. I wasn't acting or thinking rationally. It was just panic and fear and
I should have just done the correct thing from the get-go and let the chips fall where they may. But I couldn't stand the idea of losing them both horribly like that, Sterns says. So is he claiming he would have lost Maddie and also Jennifer if he would have just called 911 that night? He's making no sense. He says, I lost them both anyway. It was pointless. So what was pointless? Him covering it all up? And then again, back to him. I was just in so much agony and so much pain and so much shock and so much trauma. Sterns is acting like he's the murder victim. My mind was just not in control. It wasn't me anymore. I was doing things I wouldn't normally do. I wasn't acting rationally. It was just pain and fear.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
You know, Stephan, I can't help but get the feeling that none of this that was on the phone was a surprise to
she was aware that she had certain feelings towards me.
Yeah. Well, then why was she considering to sleep with you?
She used to joke about it, call it an Electra complex. Used to joke and say, you better not leave me for my daughter when she's older. Things like that. Laugh about it, and they used to both ogle over me and comment on me and talk about me together and giggle. And
she was aware that Maddie had certain feelings towards me, Sterns had the nerve to say. He says that in response to Deb saying, you know, Stephan, I can't help but get the feeling that none of this that was on the phone was a surprise to Jenn. Keep in mind, they're talking about this horrific CSAM, and then Stephan comes back and says, she was aware that Maddie had certain feelings for me. Oh, he's just victim blaming all over the place. Well, then Deb says, why would she send her in there to sleep with you? Instead of asking her son, why didn't you remove yourself from the situation? Why did you abuse this girl? Sterns says she used to joke about it and call it an Electra complex. I couldn't believe he said that. Now, the Electra complex, a psychoanalytic concept, describes a girl's psychosexual competition with her mother for her father's attention, similar to the Oedipus complex in boys. It's believed to occur during the phallic stage of development. Whew. Now, Oedipus, wasn't that the story of the man who killed his dad so he could be with his mom? In Sigmund Freud's theory of psychosexual development, the phallic stage, occurring between ages 3 and 6, focuses on, the child developing awareness of their genitals and everything, and leading to an attraction toward the opposite sex parent and rivalry with the same sex parent. Now, this creeps me out. Maybe Jennifer really did call it the Electra complex, and did she laugh about it? She did talk about the Woody Allen effect. Now, remember when she was describing that Woody Allen effect, she started saying the daughter falls in love with the dad. Oh, she switched it because she was talking to the cops. Dad grooms the child. She had to switch her thinking. But if she used to joke and call it the Electra complex, it's like blaming the girl. Anyway, Stephan said, she used to say, you better not leave me for my daughter when she's older. Things like that. Now, for a second, I did think Sterns, because he mumbles so much, I thought he said she was 10. But he said things like that. You better not leave me for my daughter. That's what Stephan claimed Jenn told him. And I believe she did, because she talked about telling him that, the Woody Allen effect. But she didn't mention, she called it the Electra complex, where I just hate it so much because I could scream right now. It's not Maddie's complex. It's like pointing the finger at Maddie, and it's like, oh, isn't it cute? She has a crush on her stepdad or whatever. Instead of pointing the finger at the monster who was grooming her and confusing her as a little girl and abused her for so many years.
Talk about how nice I looked, and it was not an appropriate situation.
No, it wasn't.
And, always had an issue with boundaries. She never respected any boundaries that I tried to set. He got in arguments on more than one occasion about the sleeping arrangements. So I, would beg her, please make her sleep in her own room. And she said, no, it's easier this way for me to wake her up when she's near me. And It's like we didn't have any privacy, and just didn't have any space to ourselves. And she would suggest, well, maybe you should go sleep in bed instead. And it's like, it's like a twin bed, and I'm 6+ feet, and no. Why would I want to do that instead of sleeping in our king size bed? I should have broken up with her a long time ago and just distanced myself.
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, hell yeah.
Sure, what a total. Hindsight's always 20/20.
Yeah, it seems to be my superpower. Useless superpower. Captain Hindsight.
Anyway, Stephan's like, they used to both ogle over me and comment about me and giggle. Talk about how nice I looked. It was not an appropriate situation. No, it wasn't, Deb agreed. And then Stephan says Jenn always had an issue with boundaries. Never mind his own issue with boundaries, but he claims Jenn never respected any boundaries he tried to set. They'd get into arguments on more than one occasion about the sleeping arrangements. I would beg her, please make Maddie sleep in her own room. And she said, no, it's easier for me to wake her up when she's near me. Stephan says, so it's just like we didn't have any privacy. We didn't have any space to ourselves. And he even says she used to be like, maybe you should just go sleep with Maddie instead. And then he's like, and it was like a twin bed. And, I'm like 6 feet. I don't know if he was saying maybe Jenn was saying, because stuff is redacted. I don't know if Jenn was saying maybe you should just go sleep in Maddie's bed instead. But Stephan's like, and it was like a twin bed. And, I'm like 6+ feet. And it's like, no, why would I want to do that instead of sleeping in our king size bed, I should have broken up with her a long time ago and just distanced myself, and Deb chimes in, oh, hell yeah, hell yeah. So once again, Chris is chiming in with the platitude again. Platitude, hindsight's always 20/20, and Stephan agrees, oh yeah, it's his useless superpower, Captain Hindsight.
Well, you certainly didn't appreciate it when I told you that.
No, I certainly didn't. Typical, kid trying to make their own way or have their own ideas and realizing only too late, how valuable their parents' advice really was.
Yeah. Well, this is a shit show that rivals a pigsty.
Yeah, this is not something that you recover from.
None of us will ever recover from this. Ever.
1 minute remaining.
It's not recoverable. Okay, you got your 1 minute warning, and they're probably not going to give you a fourth run at this.
Yeah, someone's screaming in the background right now, too.
Okay, honey, I hear them. So, you going to try to call back tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll see if I can call back in the next couple of days. I've probably got about $18, $19 left on the phone account, and I've got like 17 cents left in the commissary account.
We'll try to do something about that.
Okay.
What do you need to have the commissary replenished?
What?
When do you need to have the commissary replenished?
Whenever you're able to, I guess. I did get a pad of paper, though.
Nice.
You think of what?
You got a pad of paper.
Oh, okay.
I love you guys, and I'll talk to you in the next couple of days.
All right.
Okay, we love you too, honey. Bye.
Well, you certainly didn't appreciate it when I told you that, Deb says. Well, yeah, certainly, Stephan says, typical male kid trying to make their own way, have their own ideas. I don't know about that. Realizing only too late how valuable their parents' advice really was. So Sterns is really sucking up to his parents again. I don't know if he really believes the stuff he's saying. And I don't think he would have broken up with Jennifer for anything because he wouldn't have let Maddie go for anything. Well, yep, that's an ish show that rivals a pigsty, Deborah says. Yes, definitely. So they agree. And Stephan says this is something you don't recover from. Deb says none of us will ever recover from this ever. And there's 1 minute remaining. Okay, Deb says you got your 1 minute warning and they're probably not going to give you a fourth run at this. So yes, says, and Sterns says someone's screaming in the background too. Okay, honey, I hear them. Deb says, are you going to try and call back tomorrow? Yes, try and call back, but in the next couple of days, but here he goes. He makes sure to remind them, I've only got like $18 or $19 left on the phone account and only 17 cents left on commissary. Boom, I guess we finally got to the reason why Sterns was calling them 7 times on June 1st. Well, we'll try and do something about that, Deb says. Chris says, when do you need the commissary replenished? And Stephan says, whenever you're able to. I did get a pad of paper though, Stephan says, and Deb says, nice. So I'm like, was this the pad of paper from his lawyer, or did he actually buy it on commissary? Is he pretending like he bought it on commissary, but he actually got it for free from his lawyer that he wrote the poem for Maddie on? Anyway, I love you guys. I'll talk to you in the next couple of days, but of course he calls them the very next day, and we'll go over that in a future video. Let's read Revelation 1:17 through 18. When I saw him, I fell at his feet as though dead, and he placed his right hand on me and said, "Do not be afraid. I am the first and the last." Absolute deity, the Son of God and the ever-living one, living in and beyond all time and space. I died, but see, I am alive forevermore, and I have the keys of absolute control and victory over death and of Hades, the realm of the dead. That's the stuff Stephan needs to be reading, and reading about true salvation in Christ and not running game. This is not just another con, another stage you move into. Stephan needs to show he truly believes by telling the truth about everything he did to Maddie, confessing his sins, not only to God, he needs to confess them in court. Don't put people through a trial. Stop with all this mealy mouth conning your parents and getting commissary and throwing breadcrumbs and trying to blame Jenn, and not just tell the truth about what's what, because a lot of people are side-eyeing Jennifer anyway. And with Stephan kind of doing this, throwing all these breadcrumbs out there, some people will run with it. And so I'm like, Stephan, just stop it. Just tell the absolute truth about what exactly happened, and then go serve your time or go to death row, wherever you're going, and then accept God's decision, you know, his fate. Stop trying to play like maybe it's worked all of Stephan's life getting over in this way, but you can't do that with the Holy Father. You can't do that with God. God knows God sees exactly what happened anyway. So maybe Stephan, he's just waiting for you to confess to him and tell the truth. Show some true remorse and true repentance, and stop thinking about deliverance like, oh, I just want to go home and eat, so let me just say whatever. It's not going to work. Anyway, we will move forward. We'll see how many I can get done, hopefully a lot, and then we can move on to maybe Karen Reed's trial Tuesday or whatever else is going on. I just want to get through these, and also waiting for more info from Florida too. I don't know what I'll be publishing a video about, so I won't promise you anything, but thanks for watching all of this. Take care. We'll keep going.